I'm Big Boss. And you are too. No. He's the two of us together. Where we are today, we built it. This story, this legend, is ours. We can change the world and with it the future. I am you and you are me. You're Big Boss. Who are you? Who am I? You're talking to yourself. I've been watching over you for 9 years. You can call me a child.
Get off me! Get off!
Chico, keep it down.
Go away!
Now do you remember who you are?
A few years back, a theory was circulating the MGS community about the true nature of Metal Gear Solid 5. A game riddled with inconsistencies and questions seemingly without any form of true clarity. Bear in mind, this is just a theory, not a fact, perhaps an interpretation nonetheless.
Your brain might process visual information incorrectly. In other words, you could have hallucinations. You might see things that aren't there, and not see things as they really are. When the time is right, I need to remember that you're the real boss. In the world, it's double think.
When the time is right, I need to remember that you're the real boss. In a world, it's double think.
Not everything we see is an objective reality. It's often a deception, as showcased throughout the series. The reason why we keep returning to MGS5 is because, just as the name implies, it's a phantom pain, a feeling that something is still there but truthfully no longer exists. Some have accepted MGS5's fragmented narrative and moved on from the pain. Others try to explain the seemingly unexplainable or take what we received at face value, embracing the inconsistencies and acknowledging the unreliable narrator.
There's only once he's in a coma, and well, to explain that, you'll need to play towards the end of the Phantom Pain. It will all come together. You'll be like, oh, that's what happened.
And it's up to us to accept the facts that we choose to believe.
The memories you have and the role you were assigned are burdens you had to carry. It doesn't matter if they were real or not. That's never the point.
At its core, this theory suggests that just as Fight Club played with the concept of dual identities, so does MGS5, but much on a grander scale. In Fight Club, the narrator unknowingly creates Tyler Durden, an alter ego who represents his suppressed desires, frustrations, and his urges to break free from societal constraints. Tyler is everything the narrator wishes he could be: bold, fearless, and unbound by his rules. He is a manifestation of the narrator's hidden psyche, born from his need to justify his own emptiness and take back control of his life. In Metal Gear Solid 5, we see a similar narrative device, but it goes beyond just Venom Snake. This theory explores the idea that Big Boss himself created several alter egos, not just Venom, but also Skullface, and perhaps even more. Think about it. Skullface's hatred, his desire for revenge, his role as the villain who seeks to destroy the world that betrayed him. These traits align disturbingly well with Big Boss's own dark history and motivations against Zero. Just as Tyler Durden represents the narrator's rage and rebellion, Skullface could be a projection of Big Boss's guilt, his anger, and his need to bring destruction to the world.
We both are demons.
We both are demons.
Our humanity won't return.
return.
You and me, we've no place to run. Nowhere to hide. And that is why I'll show you my demon. Follow me, Big Boss.
Now do you remember who you are?
Skullface is not merely a separate character, but a phantom bomb, all from Big Boss's subconscious, a twisted reflection of his worst impulses. This essentially changes everything we know about Metal Gear Solid 5. It suggests that the real Big Boss, just like the narrator in Fight Club, is trapped in a psychological battle with himself, a battle to reconcile his own identity with the phantoms he's created. It's not about Venom realizing his role as a body double, it's about Big Boss himself confronting the ghosts of his past, phantoms he's manifested to protect the legend that has been given to him. The theory suggests that Big Boss has lost himself and uses his different personalities in a struggle to embrace the title of Big Boss. He's in the crossfire between deciding who he really is. But this is the question: how far does the rabbit hole go? And if Skullface is merely a phantom of Big Boss's mind, who else in MGS5 is nothing more than an illusion, a shadow of his fractured identity?
The human brain is capable of many illusions, of pain, of the future.
In MGS5 Ground Zeroes is where this theory marks its appearance. Big Boss, his mind, broken into dissociation throughout his life in war and PTSD, descends into madness, just like the narrator whose life is haunted by insomnia, a sense of emptiness and hatred within him. The notion is Big Boss created these identities to justify his fractured psychological traumas and his actions. The narrator tries to correct his mistakes that he has created from his alter ego, Tyler Durden, and comes to realise towards the end of the movie it was him, not Tyler, all along who set up Project Mayhem. Skullface in Ground Zeroes plots to destroy Zero, who resembles everything the narrator hated, that closely resembles the monstrous corporate life of a systematic imprisonment governed by the elites, just like Zero's power showcased in the series through Cypher and later known as the Patriots. Throughout the events leading to the Phantom Pain, we notice on the tapes that Skullface recalls the same words Big Boss did years back during the Peace Walker incident. Nothing to be ashamed of. Pain gets the better of us all.
Nothing to be ashamed of. Pain gets the better of us all. But just one time. I was questioned by this other guy. He was different. I'll never forget what he said. Cut right. Nothing to be ashamed of. Pain gets the better of us all. Let the words come from you. Now. What did your boss tell you? I nearly talked to him. This guy was so weird. I know I saw his face. I can't remember.
What's strange is that these are the only known words that were said by Big Boss, and surely couldn't have been used by someone we know as Skullface, as he wasn't there when Big Boss ushered those words to Chico. The idea is it was Big Boss all along in Camp Omega, interrogating soldiers and the likes of Paz and Chico, who he sickeningly tortures, especially Paz, since Big Boss knows that Paz is the closest link to Zero.
She'll get what she deserves. We were comrades once. But she betrayed us.
Cypher will gather all information, watching over the world and guiding the will of its people, all while they remain blissfully unaware. There will be no one to oppose them. For the first time, the world will be ruled by a single will. Until the new order is in place, you and your army will be the force that protects it. You will be Cypher's deterrent, pulling the wool over the eyes of the old order with your charisma and military prowess.
Deception and deceit. What better proof she's a real woman? Time for us to move out too. But first, let's stop by and see the boy.
Give my regards to your boss when you get home.
First Big Boss, then Zero. Liberation is at hand.
Words like growing up means choosing how you're going to live your life. Words Big Boss said to Chico, and also what Skullface says to Chico's in the tapes, which is really strange, considering that Big Boss and Chico were the only two in that room.
Chico, growing up means choosing how you're gonna live your life.
Chico, growing up means choosing how you're going to live your life.
What's unusual about Ground Zeroes is when Skullface disappears, Big Boss reappears.
We'll send a chopper from across the Cuban border. You should be back at Mother Base in time for lunch. You'll probably just miss our guests.
This dynamic does shift in the Phantom Pain. Maybe that's because he's become in touch with his alter egos altogether. For anybody who's played a Hideo Kojima game and studies his work, knows that he is an unreliable narrator, and that he also uses a lot of symbolism within his work. What's striking is something that I rarely overlooked, but on the character profiles when introduced, this one is by far the strangest, and I'm surprised we missed it. For example, Big Boss's title reads, Snake, a former hero once known by the codename Big Boss. It seems symbolically suggestive. Why would he be once known to be something that he is renowned worldwide for? It feels like a personal text or message that Big Boss at this point is not embracing the title, the codename that he hated since Operation Snake Eater.
You are above even the boss. I hereby award you the title of Big Boss.
Instead, we hear other characters refer to him as just Boss or Snake. Call it over analysing, but that's what I do. I mean, after all, it's quicker just to say Boss.
She was saving herself.
Boss.
Tape's rolling, boss.
Boss.
Let her go.
What should we do, boss? Just give the order.
Just like in the movie Fight Club, the narrator thinks Robert Paulson and Marla are real. According to theory, some suggest that apparently they're made-up projections too, and they only seem to conveniently appear at times when the narrator is about. The narrator's mind doesn't just split into one alter ego, as we know as Tyler, but in fact in the movie tells us that it's fracturing into multiple directions, with Marla embodying emotional instability that makes the narrator question his masculinity. Marla tells the narrator that she stopped going to the support groups, and it's actually because the narrator is no longer at the support groups neither. That's the only reason. The same goes for Bob, because Bob hasn't been going to the support groups because the narrator is no longer there, so they do not exist without him there, since they are his coping mechanisms for dealing with his use of the support groups and nothing more. And if you look carefully in the movie Fight Club, you can see all kinds of symbolisms. The idea that supports Marla not being real, and obviously Tyler, is the mirror on the wall that shows no reflections, hinting that they don't exist at all. The narrators imagined alternative personalities, and they have no objective image in the real world. And this is clearly showcased in the final scene of the movie where Jack is fighting Tyler in the parking garage. Also to mention as well, the real reason why we see Tyler and Marla have reflections in other scenes when Jack is checking Marla for breast cancer or when Tyler is looking in the bathroom mirror is because at those points the narrator was acting himself, observing the alternative personality as a separate person. I believe what the movie showcases, or actually better, the book, explains something that mirrors a topic that, regarded to MGS5, is very fitting in this theory, and how we have to associate the narrator alongside Big Boss, and how some of the characters around him might not even be real, as Fight Club suggests, and some particular scene in Metal Gear Solid 5 resembles exactly what I'm talking about, but we'll get to that.
I thought it might jog her memory. No luck.
Oh, unfortunate. Guess I'll just have to take your legs for myself.
So I'm taking your legs back. While not on the exact same quote lines, Big Boss was the only one who witnessed Chewie get pushed down the stairs by Hot Coldman. Seems strange that Skullface does the same thing. It's not uncommon for people to say the same phrases. As humans, we often tend to repeat what someone might have said. But at the same time, in the context of the latter of speaking of Chico, makes no sense at all, which obviously could allude to the idea that Skullface is a figment of Big Boss's imagination. Symbolically, without the theory, Big Boss and Venom, they're all connected altogether, but I'm talking about as a personality, Big Boss's dark side. He can't recall or remember his past actions because in his mind it's somebody else, when in reality it's him the entire time. Now, what is really interesting to add in regards to Fight Club is just how in MGS5 these phrases only are in the presence of Big Boss. The same applies for the narrator. Tyler is quoted saying, and I quote, "You are not your job, you are not how much money, you are not your khakis, you're an all-singing, all-dancing crap of the world." A phrase at the time the audience believed Tyler said when given on what we know now, Tyler doesn't even exist. And the reason he said this quote is because it was the narrator who said it the entire time. The cinematography showcases this when the narrator is internally speaking from within or speaking out loud. The idea is that these characters say the same things that the narrator says is because the narrator's the one who came up with these characters in the first place. Perhaps just like Big Boss.
Who are you?
Jack. Where am I?
It's night. It's night.
Jack. Can you hear me?
It's just a machine.
Who are you? Tell where is. Where is Zero? Are you? Dr. Emmerich.
Snake? Hey, what gives? Let me go! No! Give me back my legs!
Wake up soon, old friend. Time is running short.
Personally, I reckon when Big Boss snaps back into himself, he tries to undo the horrors of the suffering he's caused. For example, when rescuing Paz, she knows Big Boss comes to her aid but doesn't seem relieved to see him and mutters uncomfortable slurs, just like Chico, who begs Big Boss to go away.
Stop it. Stop. My stomach upset. Hit me all you want.
What's this? A transmitter.
Everything seems very contradictory. Big Boss talks about silencing Paz, and maybe even Chico at first, and then goes from trying to save them, knowing that it could compromise him.
So what's the plan? Silence her before we're compromised?
No. I've got something else in mind. Our friends at Cypher suspect Paz could be a double agent. She's being held for interrogation at a camp on the southern tip of Cuba.
Like I said, everything seems very contradictory to the statements to the ladder of the previous game, especially in Peace Walker. Some people tend to forget that Kaz still had involvement with Cypher, as showcased in the Phantom Pain tapes, but also as well it doesn't add up to his statements. Of course he knows who Cypher is. He claims in Ground Zeroes that she might be a double agent, even though in Peace Walker he clearly says she's a triple agent.
I knew Paz and the Professor. I knew who they really were all along.
Cuz...
I used them.
I suppose you were the one that brought them to Columbia in the first place, huh?
Guilty as charged. Paz wasn't just CIA, you know. She was working for the KGB, too. And for this Cypher group. In other words, she was a triple agent.
Our friends at Cypher suspect Paz could be a double agent.
In other words, she was a triple agent.
Even after 10 years plus, everything is still hit and miss. We don't really know the truth or the objective reality because it is so contradictory. In the context of the Fight Club theory, it makes complete sense, as Big Boss could be in self-denial about his fragmentation. Big Boss knows a lot about espionage and war and deceitful tactics of the enemy. If he knew that potentially Paz could have been a liability to MSF, why not the necessary checks? Everything just seems out of character. Compared to Big Boss in MGS3 and Peace Walker, you would think he would stop and heal, like for example at the end of MGS3 when Eva's injured, but he just seems distant and absent with Paz, almost like he's in two minds at once, if you get what I mean, almost like he's present but not at the same time. A lot of us know that not everything in MGS5 is an interpretation, and a lot of the truth can be found within some of the tapes. And not everything's an outright lie, but in case of this theory, it is a little bit outlandish. But that's the brilliance of Metal Gear Solid 5, especially Ground Zeroes, that it's the perfect prologue for the Phantom Pain. A game that even actually makes you come back to Ground Zeroes to investigate further, just to find out some truth. It's the only game in the series, minus MGS2, that really does toy with the audience's mind.
She's ready. Damn it, we were set up.
We gotta get it out.
So just like the narrator, Big Boss's mind is still fractured at this point, and believes characters like Skullface are separate individuals rather than himself, who in fact, check this out, caused the destruction at Mother Base by planting the bombs on the struts of his base, including Paz herself. The ruse he knowingly went along with the inspection team at Mother Base, which was always a ruse, one on his end that he couldn't recall, one that Big Boss created on himself and his soldiers. And oddly, this mirrors the Phantom Pain's Mission 22 Retake the Platform, with one of Big Boss's men known as Mosquito, who believed Big Boss sold out his own troops, destroyed his base to hide away from the world, and that's why he wasn't at the base that day, on March 16th, 1975.
A rumor, source unknown, had him convinced that the attack 9 years ago was orchestrated by you yourself. That Big Boss sold out his comrades to hide from the world. He thought that's why you weren't at the base that day. He was so desperate to take us down, he built up his own PF, copying us in every way. His idea of the perfect revenge.
Even though you'd think Big Boss's men would be informed of such important missions since they were like a family, he betrayed his unit, which isn't far from the truth if we take what we know from the story aside from the Fight Club theory. As Venom Snake serves as Big Boss's proxy, Big Boss would hide from the world, abandoning his allies like Diamond Dogs and going along with Cypher's plan to keep out the public eye until he could fully extract revenge on them. Well, that would mean that Venom Snake would be a separate entity, right? Well, wrong. No, if this is the Fight Club theory, then Venom Snake is another alter ego of Big Boss, trying to rebuild and reforge from the ashes of his guilt. Diamond Dogs is simply just another nation that Big Boss created, and eventually liquidated it into the likes of Outer Heaven, or rather re-established under the true name Big Boss wanted his fold to be called all along. Theory aside, whilst Big Boss were building a new nation, he still could have technically helped Diamond Dogs. The reason why he's never present is because he is present. He is there. It's just his alter ego. What the audience sees is what Big Boss is projecting himself to be.
You're all diamonds.
From Fox, two phantoms were born. Phantoms in this case meaning ghosts, something that doesn't exist, a figment of the imagination. He tried to clear the phantoms from his head and grasp reality, as the definition of the word suggests. The private strike force known as XOF never existed, as we're told. Big Boss tells himself that during his own mission, or rather his alter Skullface. Any mess he was there to clear up, referring to his resentment of being a pawn for the government during Operation Snake Eater, taking the title Big Boss, a nasty reminder of what it means. As his alter Skullface condescendingly tells him a few times in MGS5 in a condescending manner.
see the bigger picture, eventually. I'll see you in hell.
Follow me, big boss!
A name that haunts him since Big Boss's purpose and his title that was given was to kill his most beloved disciple, the boss. Skullface states he was Venom's cleanup crew. This makes sense until you realise one key thing. Venom was never there, according to the ending, because it was Big Boss reflecting his feelings of being Zero's cleanup crew to do the dirty work of his masters. Zero idolised Big Boss, albeit toxically, because of the forceful creations of Big Boss's sons and the nature of Zero's systematic agendas. Zero used his influence to turn Big Boss into an idol-like figure for the world to follow, though Big Boss grew to resent his puppet-like role. The views of the two men also begin to differ in regards of the interpretation of the boss's will. Zero took the concept to mean to control the entire world by a group under a single consciousness to ensure unification through information. Big Boss believed that the boss wanted a world where soldiers would not be used as tools of the government and a place where battle would never truly die. XOF is like Fight Club's Project Mayhem, likewise to the Narrator, an organisation solely and covertly carrying out destruction, one created by Big Boss. XOF mirrors the distinction between Fox and its inverted sense of reality. Big Boss wants to eradicate his title, extract revenge on Zero, his former Fox unit member, and destroy anything affiliated with it, like Kazuhira Miller and anything that ties him to Cypher, even if that means destroying his own base, which by the way was funded by Cypher during the events of Peace Walker as MSF to serve as Zero's private strike force. Yin and Yang symbolism takes place at the end of Where Do the Bees Sleep. We also see this a few times in terms of symbolism in Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes, the inverted Fox badge, but Big Boss was always trying everything to sever the ties with Zero. Big Boss, or rather Skullface, the evil side of Big Boss, like Fight Club's Tyler Durden, as we come to understand, in The Phantom Pain, Big Boss is divided by his alter egos, such as Ishmael, who is actually himself trying to help himself escape the mayhem he's created, just as the Narrator tries to in the Fight Club. Ishmael is a manifestation of Big Boss's inner soldier, a case of the third man syndrome. Snake taking the wheel after his death is a metaphor for the control of Snake's actions being transferred from Ishmael to Snake, trying not to lose control of himself, just as the Man Who Sold the World song lyric implies. Big Boss understands that he's becoming a demon, so as a psychological defense mechanism, he takes the mental image of the long-dead MSF medic, the player, and creates a new personality, a phantom Big Boss who takes control. The human mind is capable of many illusions, and the real Big Boss is buried deep inside his mind, and the blame for all these atrocities that Big Boss commits are alluded to the Phantom and Skullface. It's worth noting as well, when you remove Ishmael's bandages with mods, his face model is exactly like the medic or Venom Snake from Ground Zeroes. Either the devs at Konami and Kojima Productions reused assets, or it was all intentional. That Venom Snake isn't real. He's a dead medic who died a long time ago on that helicopter, and Big Boss is just taking his place for the time being.
I'll run interference.
There's plenty of evidence to suggest that Ishmael is not real, but rather a projection. For example, he gets stabbed and there is no blood. He gets shot by a helicopter and dies. And before he even leaves the hospital, Ishmael actually gets shot in the hallway by an XOF strike force team, only just to reappear and pull Big Boss into cover. And if we're meant to believe it's Big Boss, it's funny how he grows a beard after taking off the head wraps from when Ocelot rescues him. And the famous quotation of "you're talking to yourself" is obviously implying that we are indeed projecting an alter ego, and ironically has the same voice as Venom Snake, Ishmael and Big Boss, who all ironically share the same voice. And when Big Boss awakens to see Ishmael missing, as if he was never there, just like Venom was never there. It's interesting because a similar scene plays out in Fight Club where Tyler is shown driving the car like a deranged madman, when in actual fact it was always the narrator testing himself, talking to himself the entire time, about letting go and stop holding on to things. Essentially, the idea of completely relinquishing control over one's life, including societal expectations and material possessions and personal fears.
Snake?
Paz.
That's right. It's her.
What about the bomb?
We were able to remove the explosives. Both of them.
Now, going back to what I said we'd touch back and elaborate on regarding outside characters being hallucinations. For example, in the Paz side ops, Ocelot describes or speaks of Paz symbolically to Big Boss, talking about Big Boss's fractured state of mind.
Dissociative amnesia, where memories are blocked out to protect the mind.
Got to do it, Snake. She's your enemy and your objective.
Enemy? We were together for 10 years, and now you tell me she's my enemy.
Enough.
And dissociative identity disorder. The whole personality changes. What we're seeing seems to be a combination of the two.
We know that both Ocelot and Kaz, and even Paz in that sequence, are definitely not real, but rather projections of Big Boss's mind to justify his actions and act somewhat as a coping mechanism to play out this false sense of reality he's created, cobbled up through expectations and past memories.
A kernel is, in part, your own creation, cobbled together from expectations and experience.
That's crazy!
But it's probably the truth.
Key figures like Ocelot and Kaz definitely could be a part of Big Boss's dissociation, as after the explosion in the Paz's cutscene, or rather the flashback, Big Boss awakens outside. The whole questline is an hallucination, even the room is fake. In reality, the door has a warning sign on it and it leads to an unfinished ledge with a peace sign drawn on the wall. The events are undoubtedly triggered by the scribble and memento photo dropped by the first wandering Mother Base soldier. It makes Big Boss think of Paz and of his failure to notice the second bomb and to save her, or rather the bombs he planted in the first place. She's just a lingering memory brought on by his denial to face the ugly truth of her betrayal, and his actions towards her betrayal leading to her death. Some of the tapes, and even the truth tapes at the very end, are quite profound, and they could potentially be fakes, just like the ones with Paz. Because we know they're just hallucinations as well, as the Paz tapes, they are essentially Big Boss relaying what he believes Paz would say out of his own guilt.
It is just a dream. It is all a dream. I am in it, and you are in it too. I am the dreamer, but you are having my dream. There is more to remember than hatred and rage. But of course, this is you thinking that I should think that. It is no mystery now. I am just a phantom. A fragment of the mind you have lost.
Just as a side note from this theory, it's also suggested that after the events of Zanzibar and the Patriots put Big Boss under a controlled coma through nanomachines, and unless the AI system was destroyed, Big Boss could not wake up. This theory tells us that what Big Boss experienced could have all been nothing but a mere dream brought around by the nanomachines creating this artificial story. That at times makes no sense or contradicts itself from the previous games in the series. That Big Boss was dreaming the entire events of MGS5 thanks to the Patriots AI system.
Snake?
She's been acting differently lately. Before, she'd respond to conversation, just as long as it didn't conflict with her timeline. But now nothing gets a reaction from her.
What happened?
No idea. Well, Miller
did go and tell her that Skullface is dead.
Venom Snake is a part of Big Boss's guilt, or rather the medic that was in the helicopter for the death, and the torture of Paz, for example, would be endured a justification through Skullface, or rather placing the blame on someone else rather than himself. This only just gets reinforced before we realise Paz is an illusion. We can clearly see nothing has changed. Paz's wound remains the same. Miller supposedly tells her Skullface is dead, which can't have happened if Paz is clearly an illusion, which would also make Miller one too.
The wound is open.
Yeah, it was all closed up and then it went back to this.
But why?
The medic has no idea how it happened.
And there we have it, Ocelot as the projection reinforcing the medic, or this created alter ego that Big Boss has made to justify the actions of behind Paz's wound, that she must have caused the infliction herself. Of course, this is just a simple deflection of Big Boss protecting his own dissociative mind. It's an unwarranted level of guilty conscience on Big Boss's part. He couldn't have helped if Skullface had placed the bombs in there to begin with. He tried his best. It awfully reminds me of Silent Hill 2, where James Sunderland is in the same predicament. He's in pure denial and guilt until he realises it was him that caused the death of his own wife. Thinking about Metal Gear Solid and Silent Hill, they do share some similarities. We know this because about the same time MGS5 was almost complete, Kojima was also working on PT. Remnants of it can actually be heard on a tape in the mission Voices in the Phantom Pain. But Silent Hill 2 serves as a great example to reflect MGS5's themes. Some theorise in an ambiguous game such as Silent Hill 2 that a lot of the characters are a manifestation created by the town itself, although some will disagree, as lead director Masahiro Ito says everyone is real besides Maria. If you played Silent Hill 2, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Look at the way James looks at himself in the mirror, as Big Boss does towards the end of MGS5. In media, looking at oneself in a mirror typically symbolises self-reflection, introspection, confronting one's true self and examining one's identity, often in revealing deeper truths about a character's personality, flaws, or internal struggles beyond just their physical appearance. It can also represent vanity or preoccupation with image depending on the context. But in the context of Metal Gear Solid, a mirror is often used as a tool to reveal the truth about oneself, stripping away facades and illusion, and duality. The reflection can symbolise a split personality or conflicting aspects of oneself. When you fully investigate and research into the symbolism behind its meaning, you start to unfold layers of different things you would have never have seen before at first hand. Metal Gear Solid 5 is truly a chef's kiss for a masterful, deceptive, psychological combat wargame that relies on horror elements sprinkled on top.
Me. You. We're all the same.
It is just a dream. It is all a dream. I am in it, and you are in it too. I am the dreamer, but you are having my dream.
What is also very unusual, since Ishmael is a made-up character in Big Boss's mind, given on the evidence to suggest this, is what's odd is how he uses the phrase, "the whole world wants you dead." The only phrase partially used by the Doctor and by Ocelot himself, which is bizarre, which definitely could suggest and hint that Ocelot 2 in the Phantom Pain is a figment of Big Boss's imagination and expectations, explaining the latter, because if Ishmael isn't real, then how did he know what Ocelot was going to say, and vice versa? Once again, it seems like Big Boss may be speaking to himself internally.
Well, the good news is, you're in the land of the living. Bad news? The whole world wants you dead.
On your feet, soldier. Not just them. The whole world wants you dead.
Since Big Boss is the man who sold the world, and now the whole world wants him dead as he's a threat to nations, Big Boss and his revenge against Cypher is reinforced by Kaz and Ocelot, saying everything Big Boss wants to hear inside his own mind. These characters reinforce what he's thinking, as Paz explains. It's just a voice in his head. The Ground Zeroes incident suggests the idea about Kaz too, with the phrase, "Give her the shot already."
Give her the shot already!
And I can't believe we bought that cover story.
The rain was coming down just as hard the day we met Boss. I only want peace for my country. I can't believe we ever bought that cover story.
Is it possible Big Boss even imagined Kaz being present in Paz's torture incident, given on his alter ego, and hatred for Paz and her betrayal? And Kaz's statement of buying the cover story as a form of Big Boss in denial about his once best friend's betrayal, who explains to Big Boss he knew all along who this Cypher group was. Kaz's statements make no sense and differ from Peace Walker. So the profound part of all of this is Big Boss could be projecting characters he wishes to see, and a lot of evidence does suggest this. Even soldiers are overheard talking about the boss's strange recent visits to the medical platform, even though it's under construction, when he goes to visit Paz, who seemingly doesn't exist.
I heard the boss has been going to that area under construction a lot lately.
Yeah, saw him myself.
There's something in there.
He's probably just keeping tabs in the building. I've seen him watching us too. Don't let him catch you slacking off.
Ain't that the truth?
Whenever it's XOF or Diamond Dogs, it's all Big Boss is doing, hence why we see all the weird symbology that plays a huge part in MGS5, such as the Diamond Dogs logo present at OKB0, the same helicopters that Big Boss uses in his Diamond Dog fold. Even the pilot is the same, with the Diamond Dogs insignia at the back of his helmet. There's even the same specific numbers and letters that are present in the exact part of the helicopter. Big Boss and his alter never come into blows or war because everyone is on the same side. The only enemy is Big Boss himself from within. Kaz's sentiments of go along with him for now doesn't match how Kaz would really feel towards someone such as Skullface that destroyed his home and his family in MSF.
Just go along with him for now. We're ready to fight if it comes to that. That's our leverage against him, our deterrent. He doesn't want a war on his hands.
The G-Pride is Big Boss looking back at himself, or rather talking to someone that isn't there, hence why Venom doesn't reply. Just as the narrator has in the Fight Club, it's just him talking to himself.
Information codes beamed all around us, genetic codes spanning history. By controlling the codes, Cypher Zero intends to unify them. Codes implanted into our heads, sucking our minds dry as it spreads from one host to the next. A parasite upon this earth, that is what Zero is.
Ultimately, Skullface is Big Boss's revenge against Zero and colonialism, and against governments. Big Boss creates Skullface, who has a common purpose for his darker side. It's also worth noting as well those light flares that we see in particular hint at an hallucination. We see these light flares a few times, especially within the Paz side-op missions.
I've long been the other side of your coin. 1964, Soviet territory. Box's first mission.
Spirit and body are like two sides of a single coin. They're the same thing. I can't teach you how to think. You'll just have to figure it out for yourself.
Similar words spoken by Skullface and the Boss, implying that within both spirit and body, Big Boss and his alter ego Skullface live within him. In one of the E3 trailers of Big Boss's transformation, or later in the mission we know as Shining Lights Even in Death, where we see Big Boss symbolically transform through stages of his life as Skullface narrates. Throughout code names and titles he's received, he's no longer Jack, his original self. We see him turn into a demon, and then eventually Skullface, marking his final alter ego.
Along with the words they made me speak. With each change, I changed too. My thoughts, personality, how I saw right and wrong. Words can't kill.
All the alter egos that Big Boss has created, such as Ishmael, Venom, Skullface, they all share a long line of similarities. The demon takes over them all, but mostly Skullface, who has given way to it. Whereas as Venom tries to drive out the demon, Big Boss trying to drive out the monster that he is becoming.
I have to drive out this demon inside me. Build a better future. That's what we will leave as our legacy. Another mission, right, boss?
Interestingly, when we encounter Skullface in RKB0, his face pans into a weird camera distortion, as we've seen in the movie Fight Club, as if Big Boss is ushering the words he truly feels in his inner emotions.
You hope hatred might someday replace the pain, but it never goes away. It makes a man hideous, inside and out. Wouldn't you agree?
The camera shake in the filter from the voice sounds like it's spoken internally up until Skullface says, "Wouldn't you agree?" where it switches back to external dialogue, and this could mark about the pain that Big Boss still holds on, hating his title and the government taking away his beloved mentor away from him. Big Boss was a proxy to his government's mission in order to retrieve the philosopher's legacy, a mass of funds. Blood was spilled, and his masters told him to do what he believed was the right thing. But the truth is, the death of the boss had truly shaped Big Boss into the man that he would become. He just lived with it in complete denial up until it was suitable for him to really truly let go.
You're a hero, Snake, but you're not a machine.
That I can't destroy that thing.
That machine's not the problem. It's that the boss still lives inside of you.
Bullshit!
She's dead, Snake. It's time to come to terms with that. Let me put it another way. You've left everything behind. Your country, your identity, your past and ideals. But there's still one thing you haven't let go of.
What are you talking about?
The boss. You still haven't let her go.
Let go! Alright, fine.
Everything is suspect in Metal Gear Solid 5 when we find out the placement of Skullface's appearance. Especially when escaping Salamprapis, you can see him make his escape before he could possibly get crushed underneath a beam, as well as seeing a truck that was clearly destroyed by Salamprapis just to reappear out of nowhere. Venom Snake is also seen crushed underneath a tank, presumably dead, and the camera switches back to Skullface, reinforcing these ideas. For anyone who's seen the movie Fight Club, the unusual appearances of these characters seemingly appearing and disappearing out of nowhere like an hallucination, and appearing at convenient times, just like the narrator in the Fight Club. Big Boss tries to fix the problems he's created. Aside from the camera angles that hint at Big Boss switching between his personalities is what Skullface says, which mirrors Big Boss's battle with the Patriots. He didn't successfully destroy them like he wanted to in 2 occasions, and was thwarted 2 times by his son, an agent of the Patriots of the time, and there isn't really much you can do in an induced coma. Skullface talks about infesting the system, that nobody can stop it now, and that's exactly what Big Boss's ideology would do to the system.
Thirst for revenge that I have planted will infest the system. No one can stop it now.
The AI adopted his will rather than Zero's by choosing the war economy, a world that is consumed by endless warfare.
An age of persistent universal warfare, a world where mercenaries are free from domination. In a sense, the Outer Heaven Big Boss envisioned is already a living reality.
You mean the PMCs and their war business?
Just like the narrator in Fight Club, Big Boss tries to fix the problems he's created, such as Salamprapis, by destroying it, in his alter ego Venom Snake that still holds on to some humanity in Big Boss's psyche, such as rescuing children and dismantling nukes, yet at this point doesn't realise he is Big Boss. Skullface's use of the language parasites is a calculated attempt to break from Zero's control over humanity by dismantling the Patriots' power. By eradicating language Zero uses to manipulate the world, Big Boss seeks to destroy the very foundation of Zero's influence, if not merely an act of revenge, but a rebellion against the system of control that once bound him. The problem that Big Boss has by living this double life is he causes him to self-destruct and destroy those things around him that he seems to care for. The parasite strain is the perfect example of that. Big Boss releases it on his own men, only just to try and find the solution after causing it in the first place. If we're looking at it in this way symbolically, Big Boss is in essence fighting himself between good and evil and trying to determine who he really is. When Paz asks Skullface in the tapes if he hates Zero, his answer is very complex. He admits that Zero never abandoned him to die, acknowledging a debt he holds to his enemy.
You hate him, don't you?
Hate? He never left me to die. I owe him my life. I'm bound to repay the favor any way I can.
It's a chilling admission because Zero, after all, watched over Operation Snake Eater and guided Jack through the mission. Despite ultimately betraying and manipulating Big Boss, Zero kept him alive, ensuring his survival when he could have let him die and erased all evidence of the mission. Not out of compassion, because Zero needed Big Boss to secure the Philosopher's legacy. The one he truly let die was not Jack, but his old comrade, the Joy, hence why Big Boss resents him, aside from the sons. Skullface goes on to say that he doesn't hate Big Boss, but believes he deserves a little bit more of his gratitude. He's even quoted saying, "But he probably has no idea who I am," as Big Boss admits, revealing a desire to find himself within the chaos of a dissociative identity disorder.
What you want to know is, do I hate Big Boss? I don't hate the man. I do deserve a little more of his gratitude. But he probably has no idea who I am. So you see, I have no reason to hate him at all.
Yet Skullface's existence isn't just about revenge. When Big Boss goes nuclear to survive, Skullface emerges, allowing him to forget the soldiers he's killed out of a cruel mercy born from his PTSD. Skullface becomes a coping mechanism, protecting Big Boss from his own memories, from the guilt of his fallen comrades.
Are here to kill us!
Shooting your own men. That's not the Big Boss I knew.
Venom Snake serves as an example of this. He is no longer naked, but punished by the sins that have shaped him. Symbolically, these personalities merge when Big Boss finally kills off his alter ego, Skullface, through Venom. Interestingly, when the player is given the option to shoot Skullface, the bullet never truly hits him. It was almost as if Big Boss was trying to extract revenge against Skullface, but he couldn't because he wasn't real. Venom only lands the shot when the projection of Kaz guides his arm, metaphorically allowing Kaz to extract revenge. A guilt Big Boss may have felt for Kaz in the same way in the Paz mission. This projection of Kaz helps Big Boss confront his alter ego, essentially killing it off. But as Venom walks aboard Mother Base, or Big Boss, he realises that even if Skullface is gone, he is still a part of him, a phantom, a ghost. Skullface tips his hat is a haunting acknowledgement of that fact.
Sahelanthropus will unleash that thirst unto the future. Those were his last words.
Kaz.
Pretentious to the end. Still, doesn't feel like this is over.
Big Boss goes on to be a warmongerer, creating a world dependent on war, a place where soldiers are necessary to continue the cycles of destruction. Venom Snake, his alter ego, serves as a vessel to destroy what he once built, in a twisted attempt to extract revenge against Cypher and atonement for the sins of battle. But in the finality of the game, in The Man Who Sold the World, Big Boss faces himself in the mirror. The recording no longer sounding like it's coming from a record player, but as if he's speaking to himself and finally embracing the man he truly is.
I'm Big Boss, and you are too.
The moment Big Boss shatters the mirror symbolises his first battle with Solid Snake. His defeat shatters the phantom persona that controlled him for 11 years. He realises that he's been placing the blame for his actions on someone else, unable to accept the ruthless man he has become. By shattering the mirror, he acknowledges his dark side and admits his thirst for blood and conflict. And by the time he fights Snake a second time in Zanzibar, he has fully embraced the darkness within him. This theory, now over a decade old, sparked debates among fans even before MGS5 was released. It's a fascinating perspective, one that intrigues some while others might question its validity. MGS5 never explicitly confirms whenever Venom Snake was real or just a role Big Boss played. Some argue this is because the game wasn't written during the creation of the earlier titles that often refer to each other, but within the series timeline it leaves room open for interpretation. From the events of 1984 to Outer Heaven in 95, Big Boss ultimately embraces his role after his defeat to Solid Snake, before returning from his real coma in MGS4, and in doing so he puts an end to the dark legacy that impacted countless lives and accepts his death as a part of atonement at the hands of his own son. He finally puts an end to the big charade, including eliminating Zero. Big Boss finally dies in his final few moments, realising that the world would be better off without code names and different personas, and instead to just live for yourself.
Boss, you only need one snake. No. The world would be better off without snakes.
Big Boss isn't the only one who struggles to find himself in the world of Metal Gear Solid's characters, from the most important ones like Raiden and several others, and to the lifeless bosses in MGS4 which are a product of these events that led to the S3, a stagnation of the Patriot system, suffer with fractured identities such as the Beauty and the Beast, and they need Snake to set them free. The series warns and tells the audience that trauma can have severe impacts on the human mind, and what it can do to change people to protect themselves from their past.
Beast seems to laugh at everything.
At this point, no matter what you say to her, she'll only respond one way.
The symptoms resemble those seen in Ganser syndrome. It's a type of dissociative disorder characterized by irrelevant responses to the situation at hand. It often manifests itself in soldiers under extreme battlefield stress.
You mean she's not having a good time out here?
I doubt it. I'm starting to wonder if she might not have some kind of deep-seated psychological trauma.
So in the end, Big Boss dismantles his own revenge, much like the narrator in Fight Club. The battle isn't just against Skullface, but within himself, letting go of the anger and the pain that shaped him and the trauma. Skullface isn't just an enemy, he's a phantom of Big Boss's heart, born from his deepest wounds, as well as Venom. In a way, Venom Snake tries to drive out his demons by attempting to do the right thing. By confronting these fractured identities, Big Boss confronts himself, breaking the cycle of vengeance that threatened to consume him forever.
Now do you remember who you are?
With that being said, if you've made it this far, thank you for watching this deep dive. I'm aware there's probably different areas and aspects I could have covered, but it's crazy to think that after all these years, fans are still speculating and theorizing about this epic series. Don't forget to hit the like button, and if you're new, don't be afraid to subscribe for more content like this. Also, turn on the notification bell, because YouTube has a habit of not letting you guys know when new videos go up. I'm the Voice Box, and until we meet again.
Under certain conditions, someone can be made to play a specific role. Act like someone else.